Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we have to talk about the adage, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. That is right. The old adage that is often thrown around in the real estate market, which I feel applies very much so to comic books. And so in this video, I'm going to show you guys my little Black Friday comic book haul. You know, a lot of deals I was able to pick up over this past weekend. Of course, it was Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I hope you guys were able to pick up some of those Black Friday deals, because I feel like those Black Friday deals are really the chance to be able to find a lot of equity in books, especially if you had an LCS doing a good sale. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, of course, I got some books over the weekend, nothing too crazy, don't get too excited. We're just gonna flip through some of the books and talk a little bit about them. But, you know, kind of more importantly, towards the end of the video, I still wanna really hammer home this idea of, you know, making your money when you buy and talking about that adage and how it is a really, really good approach to comic book collecting in order to make the hobby pay for itself. But let's kind of dig into the books here. Let's talk about some of the ones I picked up. Now, this first one I got is, Golden Age, guys. I keep picking up some of this Golden Age. It's not often that you can just kind of go to an LCS and find Golden Age books, but one of my LCSs in my area does in fact have a small selection of Golden Age. And the first book I was actually able to pick up is this one right here, Weird Science Fantasy number 26. The very, very cool Al Feldstein cover, the UFO with the, what is that, a Boeing airplane right there. But this is basically from the EC comic book run. I believe this is at the time when they had, the two different titles, Weird Science and Weird Fantasy going on. And then they actually kind of merged the two titles together before they would actually stop doing all of the titles at that time when, the Comics Code was kind of coming in. Book from 1954, I believe that it is. But it's interesting because, I'm not really a big sci-fi guy. I mean, I do like sci-fi books. There are a handful of covers that I am really attracted to of the EC books in this particular, these two runs. But I'm mostly into the horror stuff. But that being said, my LCS was having a 50% off all of the back issue books. And so as you guys can see right there, the price sticker on this was $90. I was able to land this one for $45, which in my opinion was a really good deal. I mean, even though this is a low grade copy of this book, we have some splitting here along the sides. I do actually think that, anytime you can kind of pick up an EC book, even if it's a run filler, which effectively this is a run filler, but anytime you can pick up these books for less than $100, I mean, even $90 isn't that bad of a price overall to pay for this book. And so for me, I felt like, hey, $45, EC book, Golden Age, not too many out there, even if it's a run filler, probably worth picking up, which is why I also picked up this next book I got in my haul right here, which is Weird Science Fantasy number 28, another Al Feldstein cover. Al Feldstein is probably my favorite EC artist as far as the EC artists are concerned. Now, we did our video series during Halloween with Automatic Comic Books and Como Comic Books. The artist I had was Johnny Craig. Drew Como Comic Books actually had Al Feldstein, and I tend to like his art style the most because to me it's the most approachable, I guess, of the various art styles. He often puts things on a singular plane, which allows you to kind of look at the art all together at once, which I think is pretty cool. But this is just another kind of crazy sci-fi cover. Nothing significant about this that I know of, but another one kind of in this run. Again, the price was $100, half off, got it for $50. And again, my philosophy with some of these EC books and these EC fillers is that anytime you really can find them for under $100, if they're, generally okay presenting, I think is going to be kind of an instant equity, because it does feel like a lot of these books, specifically the keys, at minimum are going to be going for, $200, $300 on eBay. And the run fillers also sell around that $100 or $150 range. So they're always good buys if you find them in the wild, which is not very often. All right, this next book I got right here is Fantastic Four number 120. And what is the significance of this? Well, this would be the first appearance of the Galactus Herald known as Airwalker. Got this one for, let's see, what's half of 17? $8, I guess it is. Not too bad if you ask me. This is one of those books I think got way too hot, way too fast in the market. You know, when we were in the 2021 boom, everybody was thinking about those future Spec books and what could be possibly coming. A lot of people were thinking Silver Surfer and Galactus, and a lot of people were thinking all of Galactus's heralds, which I do think it's possible that at some point in the future we could see, you know, a storyline with the Galactus heralds. But you have to imagine that, you know, we have to, one, wait for Galactus to show up, and then two, obviously his first herald is going to be Silver Surfer. So it kind of makes you realize it's going to take multiple Galactus appearances for us to get a story where he recruits a new herald. So I think this is one of those books where the market has kind of cooled on this one a lot, but it's still a very, very significant book. Still a cool character overall. I mean, it wasn't very long of him being a herald of Galactus, but later on they would bring him back in the Silver Surfer run, I believe around issue number 85 or something like that. All right, this next book I picked up right here is just a classic cover. This is one of the all-time great Copper Age covers, if you ask me, which of course this is X-Men number 11 from 1992, the famous Jim Lee cover. Got this one half price. What do you see right there? $13. So the price would have been, math is hard, $6.50. So anytime you can get a book like this for, you know, $6, I think it's always worth picking it up. This is just one of those books that I think everybody likes to have in their collection, especially if you can get it in 9.8. I think it's a really great, you know, shelf book. All right, these next few books I picked up were already in discount bins, but then I was able to also get half off on them. So, you know, for a whopping $1, I picked up Captain America number 360. And what is the significance of this? Well, this actually would arguably be the first appearance of the character Crossbones. Of course, you guys remember Crossbones. We got him in Captain America's Civil War. One of Captain America's, you know, in my opinion, I think he's one of Captain America's cooler rogue gallery of villains. I mean, maybe it's just because I grew up in this area that I happen to like Crossbones, but I definitely identify him as a villain that is, you know, cool for Captain America. And this one right here is argued to be his first appearance. Now, he does in fact appear in this book, but it is in sort of like a cameo situation, meaning I think he's only in 3 panels, yet the 3 panels are in the middle of the book rather than the end of the book. So, you know, kind of dips into this territory of like, you know, if you only appear in a handful of panels and your appearance effectively is kind of like other cameos we've seen before, but you appear in the middle of the book rather than, say, the last page of the book, are you, in fact, making your true first appearance? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that one. I think the issue after this, 361, Crossbones is actually on the cover, and I think a lot of people like that. Although, you know, who's really collecting Crossbones first appearance? Nobody out there in the market. But hey, for $1, I thought it was worth picking up. All right, this next book I got right here was, you know, in the $5 bin, but half off, so I got it for $2.50. This is Daredevil number 254, and what is the significance of this? Well, you guys would know if you're Daredevil fans. This is the first appearance of the character known as Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary, kind of a, you know, interesting villain. I feel like she has like a following amongst comic book collectors. I've never been like a huge, you know, Daredevil reader. I mean, I enjoy, you know, some of the key stories like the Frank Miller stuff. I've definitely kind of dug into those, but I've never really gone much past that section of the Daredevil comic books. But a lot of people really like this character. I think she was recently used in current comic books. I think in the Chip Zdarsky run, which I think gave her some kind of, you know, notoriety or renewed interest in that particular book right there. All right, this next book right here is one that every time I see it, it always makes me smile. This one is, of course, Gambit number 1, the first solo title for the Gambit character. This is just some, you know, 90s goodness, if you ask me. Any, you know, shiny foil cover, all black. As you can see, I got this one for $3, but of course half price, so $1.50. And this is just a cool book. I mean, I still am a firm believer in first solo series as nice books to have, good books to pick up, because when inevitably we get those characters in the MCU, I think for sure we are going to be getting Gambit as a part of the X-Men roster. I think that, you know, their solo series become kind of that next book in line to pick up in the market. So even though this is something that I already got for a really, really cheap price, I could definitely see this one shooting up at some point in the future. But let's move on to this next book because I feel like it kind of relates to Gambit. This one, of course, is Rogue number 1, first solo series for the Rogue character. Also got it for $1.50. And, you know, like for a lot of the reasons I talked about with Gambit number 1, one. I feel like the solo series are good pickups anytime. I think Rogue for sure is a shoo-in to be showing up in the MCU. I mean, maybe we're going to be getting Anna Paquin and some of the old sort of Fox X-Men characters kind of along the way. Certainly, I think it's very likely that we will see them in Secret Wars, but it sort of begs the question, will we see them in some of the films, prior to that? Will we kind of get a little bit of, kind of a recap of their storylines so that we can kind of get the audiences reinvested in them as characters before we actually see them in Secret Wars? And I feel like once we eventually do see them, a lot of these types of books will pick up in the market. All right, this next book I got right here is another kind of 90s goodness book. Is this 90s? Yeah, this is 90s. 90s goodness book. A foil cover, just gives me a lot of, nostalgia. But this one right here is Silver Surfer number 50, first print. But the reason I really decided to pick this one up is because of the fact that right there you can see on the cover, it is signed by Ron Lim. Ron Lim has a signature right there. I actually really like the placement of that. And so, this one was listed at 20, but it was half off, so I got it for $10. I felt like $10 was worth a pickup for this because it has the signature on it. Not like I'm going to actually send this into CBCS to get verified or anything like that. I mean, it's just kind of a cool book that kind of reminds me of when I was collecting Silver Surfer back in the day. And I thought that this one, this particular copy was cool because, it had the Ron Lim sig. All right, two more books to talk about. And the second to last one I got right here is, a very, very cool spec book. I still consider this to be a really cool spec book, but I don't necessarily, assume that the market is ever going to, jump on this thing. I just think it's a cool book and I happen to pick it up when I see it. But this one right here is Ultimates number 2 from 2002. Of course, this is written by Mark Millar. This is when Marvel was doing kind of the reboot and the Ultimate storyline. And what is the significance of this issue? Well, this actually is the first time that we see Nick Fury drawn in the likeness of Samuel L. Jackson. And for my money, I feel like this is one of the cool kind of Nick Fury books to own. I feel like, obviously there's Sergeant Fury number 1, which is the original first appearance of Nick Fury. But because Samuel L. Jackson has kind of really been, ingrained in Marvel Comics as sort of like the new look of Nick Fury, and it feels like, we're going to be getting Secret Invasion, we're going to be getting more Samuel L. Jackson storylines in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've always kind of felt like this is a very important kind of key book, low-key key. I mean, I don't ever think that this book should be more expensive than Sergeant Fury number 1, but I do think that this is a very cool book to have. And I do wonder if when we get to Secret Invasion, this will be a kind of book that picks up in the market. Granted, we are currently in this bear market. We always talk about that, but I do still think that, certain key books or certain spec books will always get hot in the market. I mean, that is just the nature of the beast. I mean, anytime there's a book that was heavily speculated on going into a show, say if we're looking at Black Panther and, we look at some of the Riri Williams keys, when those books are heavily speculated on, I don't think there's any gas left in the tank for the market to get excited when we get to that property. But if there's spec books that the market hasn't lost their mind over yet, when we get to Secret Invasion, for instance, I think that those types of books will in fact get hot and will in fact go up. And I think that this has a good potential to do that. So found this one for half price of the $3 right there. So, another $1.50 book, totally worth picking up. Even if it never goes anywhere, I still think that is a cool one to have in the collection. All right, and the last book I got right here is another Golden Age book, guys. I got another Golden Age book, but this one is a really funny one. Just one that, when I flipped past it, I was like, I like that cover. I want it. This is actually 4-Color Comics number 88. And what is the significance of this? Well, this actually is just a very, very cool Bugs Bunny sci-fi cover. Now, I happened to talk at the beginning of the video how I wasn't necessarily into sci-fi, but this cover changed my mind. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, hey, that's just really cool. I love Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny is a cool character. And I feel like a lot of the Golden Age, cartoon characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Mickey Mouse, all that stuff is a really interesting space. I mean, I'm not here trying to say that I think that these books are undervalued, because I think that there are so many copies out there. There are tons of Looney Tunes Golden Age books out there in the market. But I do actually think that there are a handful of covers that are very, very interesting, especially when you get to some of the covers that are a little bit risky in terms of, I can't believe they had, Mickey Mouse holding a shotgun or Daffy Duck aiming a gun at, his head or whatever the case is. I think a lot of those covers could in fact get hot in the market at some point in the future. This one right here actually did go on sale recently for Heritage. It was the highest graded copy on the census. It was a pedigree copy, and it sold for like, I don't know, $2,000 at like a 9.4 grade. So, it did definitely get a premium price for that particular key. But this one right here was listed at $28, got it for half price at $14. So, pretty cool cover overall, just to add to the PC, just because I happen to like it. Well, that was my comic book haul, but I did kind of want to still dive into this idea of talking about, making your money when you buy. I mean, a lot of these books I picked up here were ones that, if they were being sold at sticker price, I definitely wouldn't have picked them up. I want to be able to get instant equity when I make my purchases. And being that these were half off, to me, they were instantly books that if I decide to pick them up and I decide to sell them later on down the line, I know that I'm not going to lose out on my investment, so to speak. And, to me, that's really one of the things I think is a really important approach if you're somebody out there who wants to, have the hobby pay for itself, which is definitely something that, I try to do. I mean, comic book collecting is very, very expensive. And I think it's a very helpful thing to have, books sort of offset some of the costs of books that you actually want to own and keep in your collection. And I think that that's just sort of a good way to approach the hobby. We're heading now into 2023. Nobody really knows how the market is going to act. Later on this week, I believe, I will have a updated Silver Age and Bronze Age index for us to look at. And, it's been my projections that we are definitely going to have a lower month this month than we did last month. And, this could actually start to be, flirting with the bottom. Again, who really knows what's going to happen? Maybe the bottom is going to come at some point next year. And for that reason, it's really hard to understand how the market is going to behave in correlation to sort of the MCU properties that come out. Will there be books that spike in the market? Well, of course, there's going to be books that spike in the market, but will those books have that sort of, I see it in front of me and then the market also goes for it? We're watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Everyone is excited about, High Evolutionary. Everyone is buying Thor 134. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. And for that reason, I think that, making purchases on books that are already underpriced or undervalued or, having that equity when you buy it, making your money when you buy is really going to be, the best way to ensure that you actually are, investing properly. Like if you think about it, we could do all of the research, we could do all of the speculation. We could say, okay, this book right here, should be worth this much money and it should go up in value this much because of, if I look at Swaggle video where it talks about the Silver Age index, well, if it's Silver Age key, year over year returns 15%, therefore this book is going to go up in value and therefore it is going to be a good investment because of the fact that we have this movie that relates to that key and then that character is going to be coming to the MCU and then that character is going to do this and they're going to be very popular and then more people are going to want to buy the book, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We could do all of the research. We could look at it. We could look at historical performance and we could, maybe assume that the book will go up in value. Or we could go out, hunt in the wild and see, hey, this book that is worth X is actually being priced for Y. If I buy this right now, I instantly have the value of X. And then I'm playing with house money. And, maybe later on in the future, all of those things that I talked about previously, where the book goes up in value and, the character is coming to the MCU, et cetera, and it's going to return 15% year over year, maybe all of those things will also come true. And therefore, I will have double the equity for the book that I already that I made my money when I purchased it because it was being sold at a good deal. But the reality is, nothing is guaranteed, right? I always talk about this on the channel. No book is guaranteed to go up in value, no matter what it is, no matter what key it is, no matter, how rare it is. It is very likely that a book will go up in value. There are, historical signs that certain key books will always be desired in the market and will historically always go up in value. But at a certain point, maybe, the trend is your friend until it's not, right? The trend is your friend until it's not. What is it saying? The trend is your friend until it's not. You guys know what I'm talking about. The trend is your friend until it's not. And there might be a time at some point in the future where the trend is no longer your friend and those, patterns that we were looking at are no longer recognizable in, the current trend. So that's one of the things you have to consider. And that's one of the things why I think hunting and finding books at good deals and making your money when you purchase is the best way to kind of ensure and minimize sort of the downside risk of certain books that you're out there like investing in or assuming are going to be going up in value. So, with a weekend like this, when you have a Black Friday sale and you're having books at 50% off or wherever you guys are going to, your LCSs, or maybe you find online stores that are, giving deals, having that instant equity is really one of the best ways to approach comic book collecting if you're somebody who is collecting on a budget and you, want, generally speaking, to have the hobby pay for itself. Well, that is all I have for this video. That was me just kind of showing off, some of the Black Friday books I was able to pick up for myself. Some cool ones in here, nothing too crazy. But let me know what you guys got. Let me know if you picked up any cool books over the weekend. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.